All right, welcome to lesson 2, area of triangles notes. So the first thing we're going to review is that the area of a polygon is the number of square units inside that polygon. And a polygon is just a shape that has multiple sides to it. A triangle is just a 3-sided polygon. And the base of a triangle can be any side of that triangle. However, the height of the triangle has to be a perpendicular distance between the vertex, so the top point of the triangle, and the base. We'll label that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to identify the heights and bases here. I will use blue and green. All right, so in this first triangle, we're going to identify the base as the bottom. Now remember, as we've talked about in class, the base does not always have to be the bottom, but it can be. And then we can go ahead and draw a perpendicular line from the base to the top of the triangle and label that the height. All right, next triangle, again, we can label this bottom piece the base. And then we can label the perpendicular line the height. With this next one, it's a little bit harder because our triangle is actually upside down. So it helps to be able to rotate our paper. And once you rotate the paper, you can label a base. Now, technically, you could have chosen either one of these to be the base. It shouldn't matter which one you choose. And then the opposite to be the height, because that is the perpendicular line. Now, this is another one that's a little tough because if you pick the bottom as the base, there's no perpendicular point that would go up to the height. So probably the best way to actually do this is to rotate your paper and to label this as your base. And then just to go ahead and draw a perpendicular line up to the vertex or the top point and label that your height. The next one, we've got a triangle on a grid. So again, we can label this bottom part the base. And then we can draw a perpendicular line all the way up through the vertex point and label that the height. So hopefully, as you discovered in your investigation, that the formula for the area of a triangle is actually area equals 1/2 times the base times the height. Or another way of writing this is area equals base times height divided by 2. Now you can use either formula. Usually people like to use one over the other, but either one will get you the same answer. So we're gonna go ahead and practice it. We're gonna find the area of the triangle to the left, showing all of our steps. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go through and write the formula. So I'm gonna go ahead and choose this, this one right here. So I'm gonna write the formula, area equals base times height, and then I'm gonna end up dividing that by 2. And my base here is going to be 24, and my height is actually going to be 28, and then I'll end up dividing that by 2. So now I'm gonna go ahead and do the math. So 24 times 28 should be 672, and then I'm going to end up dividing that by 2, which should get me an answer of 336. And since my unit is meters, I can label that as meters squared because we know that area always, the units for area are always squared. Let's go ahead and try another one. So this next one, we have a triangle on a grid. Again, we don't have a very easy base that we're looking at. So what I will probably want to do is just rotate my paper, and then I can identify the base, and I can go ahead and identify the height. So in this case, we're going to count how many blocks the base is spread throughout. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So in our area formula, area equals, I'm going to use the other formula for this one just for the fun of it. Area equals 1/2 times base times height. So in this case, we know that the base is 11. The height is going to be 1, 2, 3. So we've got 1/2 times 11 times 3. Now I'm going to go ahead and multiply these. So 1/2 times 11 should be 5.5. And then I'm going to take that times 3. So 5.5 times 3 should be 16.5. So our area equals 16.5. All right, we're gonna go ahead and try the next one. If you are so daring and you'd like to try it on your own, go ahead and try this one on your own. You can pause the video and then come back when you're ready to check yourself. So for B, again, we're gonna write out our formula. Area equals, I'm gonna use base times height divided by 2. Remember, you can use either formula. Then I need to select a base. Now, since I have a right angle here, technically either of these two lines can be my base. I'm gonna choose 8.3 as my base. And then I will choose 18.2 as my height. So then I'm just gonna plug it into the formula. So my base is gonna be 8.3 times my height, which is 18.2, and then I'll divide the whole thing by 2. So 8.3 times 18.2 should be 151.06 or 151 600ths. Then I'm going to divide it by 2. And I should end up with a final area of 75 53/100ths. All right, we're gonna do the next one. Again, if you wanna pause the video and try it on your own, go ahead and do so. We've got our base already labeled with 56 centimeters. Oh, I'm sorry, we need to go back to number B because I forgot my units. Since our units are millimeters and we're finding area, our units will be millimeters squared. Okay, so for C, we've got a base of 56 centimeters, a height of 8 centimeters, so I'm just gonna go ahead and plug that in. I'm gonna use the formula 1/2 times base times height. So here I'm taking 1/2 times the base of 56 centimeters times the height of 8 centimeters. 1/2 times 56 is going to be 28. We're going to multiply that by 8, which should give us an area of 224 centimeters squared. There we go. All right, next one, D. Now this one looks a little funny because this triangle is not what I like to call like a vertical triangle where it goes straight up and down. Our vertex point or our tallest point actually goes off to the side, so it's kind of a slanted vertex. So in this case, we've got a couple things labeled. We've got the base of our triangle. We've got the height of how tall the triangle is above the base. We've got how far away that vertex point is, and then we've got our longest side, which we call our hypotenuse. So in this triangle, actually, our base we can use as 22. In just 22. We do not need to include the extra 8 feet. It's just the base part of the triangle itself. And then for the height, we can actually just include this 16 feet because that's just the distance from where the baseline is all the way up to the vertex point. So even though this is off to the side and it's not connected to the base, that's okay. All right, so now we're gonna find our area. So we're gonna start with our formula. Area equals base times height divided by 2. Again, it doesn't matter which formula you choose. My base is going to be 22 feet. My height is going to be 16 feet, and then I'm gonna divide it all by 2. So 22 times 16 should be 352 feet squared. Then I'm going to end up dividing that by 2, and I end up with 176 feet squared as my final area. All right, let's try one more. So the last one is a little bit of a challenge. We're going to find the height of a triangle and its base. If its base is 4 inches and its area is 22 inches squared. And we can already see that we're going to be working backwards because we're trying to find the height. So what I want to do first is identify any important information because that's a good habit to do anytime you're doing a word problem. So it says find the height. So right away I know that I'm looking for the height of a triangle if its base is 4 inches and its area is 22 inches squared. So now if I go ahead and I start with my area formula, now anytime you're working backwards, it's best to use the formula A equals 1/2 times base times height. Okay, remember this is a challenge, so these problems will be optional on your practice sheets. So now what we can do is plug in what we know. So we know that the area is 22 inches squared. So that goes, we're going to substitute that in where the A is. Then we've got 1/2 times a base of 4 inches times a height. So now with the commutative property of multiplication, it actually doesn't matter in which we multiply these. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply these two together. So off on the side of my paper, if I take 1/2 times 4/1, I end up getting, I can go ahead and cross cancel, I end up just getting an answer of 2. So I know that 1/2 times 4 inches is really just 2 inches. And then we need to bring down the times h. And we can set that equal to our 22 inches squared. So now we're just solving a one-step equation. So instead of multiplying by 2 inches, we want to divide by 2 inches, which cancels out. And whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. 22 divided by 2 is just 11. And then inches squared divided by inches. This is kind of like the opposite of multiplying units. So we're really just going to take that exponent away, and it's just going to be 11 inches equals our h, or our height. And we have our solution. Again, these will be a little bit of a challenge on your practice, but it is best to use this formula of 1/2 times base times height. All right, thanks so much for watching. Go ahead and see your teacher for your next step.